I have a knife here with a broken tip. This knife belongs to a friend of mine, and I will grind in a new tip, hand grind with water stones. Hopefully we can make it look brand new, like that never even happened. I'm going to grind here all the way in to the tip here. So we're going to remove quite a bit of metal, which is usually going to take a lot of time. But if I use a very coarse stone, it shouldn't take unnecessarily long time. So here's my setup, which you might be familiar from last time. I have this tray. I put a little slide stop drawer liner material there. Here are my blocks to elevate the water stones. And this stone right here is a quite coarse. There's no grit. I bought this when I was visiting Japan some time ago, and it was pretty cheap, being sold at a hardware store for probably about $8, $10. I can't remember exactly how much, but it is very coarse and it was cheap. So I will use this to do most of the work, and then we'll polish up that edge. This process is pretty hard on the stones, and you will see after I'm done here that there's going to be a big groove worn into the stone, which is why I don't use a good stone for this. If you don't have something that you don't mind wearing like this, you can buy a cheap stone specifically for that. You might just use a brick or something like that. This is going to take quite a bit of time to get this tip sharp again, but it can be done. You have a power wheel of some sort that would definitely make this go faster, or a belt sander, that would also work. But you can also do it this way, and I'll try to show you the progress along the way. I might fast forward through some of these if I can figure out how to do that as I'm editing, because it's a really long process. But it is possible to fix a tip like this if you're patient and you don't mind wearing a particular stone quite a bit. So I don't know if you can see, this is where I'm at after just some quick passes like that I just showed you. How can I get the lighting here? Having a difficult time getting good lighting on that tip, but that's what that looks like right now. So already it's probably about a third of the way down. So if you have a really coarse stone, it'll make quick work of it. And that's the reason why you don't normally want to use such a stone, because it removes way more material than you want. And at first you can be pretty, you don't have to really count the strokes specifically, it's just going to take forever. But once you start getting closer to the end result that you are looking for, you want to slow down and try to form as even of a grind as you can on both sides. Okay, it's maybe half there. You don't want to just work on the tip. I'm working on the tip area, and so it's going to wear quite a bit of this. No really good way around that. And since this knife has a bolster, this area is I'm not gonna be able to grind it all evenly down, which would be, I think, preferable. You can grind down a bolster, but I'm not gonna mess with that today. We're just gonna regrind a new tip. I can already feel large grooves forming on this stone. So I'm trying to change the spot that I'm working, avoid the grooves that I've already made. And I can go and flatten this stone with another coarse stone halfway through the process if it becomes too difficult to work with. Very dry. Try to wash away all that sludge that forms. Okay. Still got about a third of the way left to go. It looks like I'm grinding more on this side than this side, so I'm going to try to work more on just like even it out. Because I'm not ambidextrously sharpening, switching hands, inevitably there's going to be a side that you tend to favor just habitually. That's why some people will actually count, the strokes. Goodness. But I just kind of eyeball it, because it just slows me down. Focus on maintaining decent form, and you just kind of visually and by touch get it about right, and that's usually good enough for the results I'm looking for. I still have quite a bit to grind, so there's plenty of time left to even that angle out on both sides yet. It's pretty tiring to do. So you're deliberately moving just around the different areas of the stone to avoid that large groove where I initially wore that down, because apparently that's where I favor. I'm going to actually flip the stone now. Not use the other side, but just so that, there we go. That feels better. And you should have an angle in mind before you start this visually. What kind of an angle are you looking to form? So if it looks like it's too steep, you're going to start to adjust that as you start to get closer to the tip. Looks like my reverse side here, I'm grinding in a steeper angle than this side. My angle tends to be shallower, so I'm going to bring that up just a little bit. I'm getting there. Definitely getting there. See if I can show you the results so far. And you're going to end up scraping that tip a little bit. It's just how it is, and I'm not too worried about it. I don't think my friend whose knife this is too concerned about that. It already has quite a bit in terms of scratch marks and use, wear and tear on it. So I'm just trying to restore that tip here. But yeah, I did put some slight scrape marks because the grooves that are here. Okay, we're getting there. I would say we got about 20% left to go. I'm And you don't have to do this kind of a thing in one go if you're trying to do this. You can just do it in stages. So maybe one day you do this, and another day you can clean it up. I'm going to try and do this in one go today, because I don't know when I'm going to have time to do it again. You want to be careful not to have an abrupt curve at that tip when you're doing this. You want to have a gentle arching edge that follows the original lines as much as possible, which is why you see me removing metal also about a quarter to a third of the way down, rather than just working the very tip. Okay, we're getting pretty close here. As I said, you don't want to do this with a medium grit stone. First of all, it's going to be too expensive likely, and there's just no reason to put that kind of wear and tear. If you don't have something like this, you could use a coarse grit sandpaper. That might be a way if you don't think that you'll ever need to do this kind of a thing again. I don't know how many sheets of sandpaper you're going to need for this process, but as long as you can have a flat surface to put it on and stabilize that paper, that might be another affordable way to get this rough grinding done without investing in a specific stone for that purpose. Okay, ooh, that's starting to look pretty good. I'm going to start to pay more attention to my angle a little bit more and make a little more of an effort to grind evenly on both sides. So I'm not counting, but just visually inspecting and roughly speaking, trying to get a similar number of strokes on both sides. And if one side looks like it is needing to be ground a little bit more, I'll spend a little bit extra time. And I'm rinsing it off more frequently now in order to keep track of that edge visually. Okay. And we're done. Hopefully it won't even look like that edge never got chipped off. That's the goal. It'll have some scrape marks in here. That's kind of, you have to expect that with coarse stones such as this one. It's really hard to avoid those deeper scratches. I think I already have this edge to the point where you'd have to look pretty carefully to see that there was anything chipped off there. But I want to get a really nice edge in here. Since I'm bothering to do this. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so my grind marks have reached all the way to the tip. But there is still a little bit of a flat spot at the very tip. I'm going to try and get that all the way to an acute point. Sometimes this finishing part takes a little bit longer because you're slowing down. This is where it's important to take your time. But I am nearly there. After this, I'll go to another coarse stone that is not quite as coarse as the first stone and really establish that angle. Okay, a little bit more. But you want to do as much grinding on this stone as possible. Save time. So I'm already, I guess, 15 minutes or so into this, which in the grand scheme of things is not that bad, I don't think. You could also back off the secondary edge behind that primary edge to thin it out a little bit. I'm not going to do that. It wasn't requested of me to do so, but in the future that would definitely be good. But because as you back off the edge, it becomes more obtuse of an angle, because as you go farther and farther up, it gets thicker. So let's say over time this knife, gets sharpened down to there. It's going to be a lot thicker behind the edge there. So you want to thin it out, that's kind of a big project with a knife like this. Okay, I think I'm about done with that. So what does that look like? That's pretty good. That's pretty good. It's not in focus there, is it? I'm having a difficult time getting the camera to show this. But there, that's the edge right there. I keep calling it the edge, it's really the tip. Okay, just a little bit more. I'm going to go the full length all the way to the bolster to have an even grind for the angle that I'm establishing here. Okay, I'll call that good. That's really nice. All right, let's go to maybe a 300, 350. See what I feel like. Put this stone back in its bucket where I had it soaking. This is a soaking stone. You don't want to use it dry. And I'll try to flatten those grooves out. Maybe I'll show how much. Can you see the big grooves that have worn in there from this project? Yeah. So I'm gonna flatten those out after I'm done. But I wouldn't want that. And this stone is pretty soft too, so it's just kind of how it goes. Alright, so here's my 320 Deshin stone, which I love. It's a splash and go stone, so I don't need to soak it. In fact, you don't want to soak this one. And then I'm going to be more careful with. So that other stone, it wasn't rated. My guess is it's probably about a number 100. That's a Japanese grit number. It's very coarse. It's really for rough jobs, such as what we were just doing here. But here, I'm actually going to sharpen the knife. I don't know that I've ever had to do something quite like this. I've never broken off a tip on any of my knives that I can remember. So this was an interesting project. I wasn't sure exactly how much time it was going to take me to do this, but if I can get the whole thing done in 30 minutes, I would say that's pretty good for the amount of grinding and considering I'm doing this completely freehand. That's where that coarse stone really helps you out. I would never do that with this stone. Stone is a lot more valuable, and I would like to keep it for many, many more years. The other one, I don't really care. Whatever happens to it, it's sort of not a throwaway stone, but so when I do stuff like that are quite abusive to the stone. That's what that's for me. So it's good to have those kinds of stones as well. Something cheap, something coarse, you really, really go to town on it. And you have something with a lot of chips, or in this case, a broken tip. Okay, what is that looking like? I've got a good tip on this side, but this side, the grind isn't quite all the way to the tip. Almost. Very, very close. Just a few more strokes and I think it'll get there. That's pretty good. I like that. Now I'm just going to work on evening out that edge. Reducing my strokes as I progress until I'm just stropping on this stone. And that's how I even out the grind without counting my strokes. As you approach the end goal for that grit, you can slow the process down and really fine-tune that angle. And I'm also reducing the amount of pressure that I am applying as I go. That should be good. Now the next is the medium grit. Now I'm going to really start to see if there are any problems with the grind that I've established here anywhere. There is some variation to the edge down here towards the hilt, the bolster. The grind is not the grind that I can visually see. The primary grind is not as wide as it is up here, which means I have a different angle up here. It's not necessarily a problem. It's bugging me a little bit. Maybe I'll grind this area just a bit more to even that angle out. Because of the bolster, that makes it a little bit more difficult for me. Because what will happen here, as you're starting to see, is that it's going to start to form a divot close to the bolster. And I really don't like that. And at some point you're going to want to grind this bolster down. But again, as I said, I'm not going to be doing that. So, personally I avoid knives with a bolster like this. I can't sharpen all the way to the heel, which is a very useful part of the blade when I'm cooking. I like having that. Never mind that, it's not my knife, so. Okay, that looks a little bit better. Even that out again. applying a little bit more pressure towards the heel as I get down there. Okay. How am I doing on time? We're looking at 25 minutes. Okay. It's not horrible. The grind looks decent. It's not perfect, but that's okay. It's better. It's a lot better. If I were to sharpen this knife again in the future, then I'll make it just a little bit better next time. Okay. Now, rinse that off there. Let's move on. I think I used that stone. I'm going to use it. Well, it's here. It's ready. I'm ready to use it. Let's use this side today. Try to flip this stone so I'm using the front side, the back side alternately. The other strategy is you have a side that you use and try to keep it flat. It will probably not stay flat. It's hard to keep these stones flat over the lifespan of the stone. So as you start to see grooves forming or as you're flattening it, it's not quite as flat as you want. At that point you might decide to switch sides and work at that stone from the other side, which that's another strategy. This is one of the stones that has been with me the longest, and it was quite affordable when I purchased it about 10 years ago, and it has served me well. An all-around stone. If you had to get one stone, something like this is what you want to have, something around 1,000 to 1,200 grit. It's going to give you a good enough edge to use, but also it's not so fine that you won't be able to remove some minor chips and dents. Again, I would never use this to grind in a new tip. That'd be insane. I'll be here for hours. Plus you put huge grooves on the stone, which is just a waste. There's no point in doing that. If I only had this stone and I had to fix a tip, I would use some sandpaper, or maybe even a cinder block or a brick. I have to experiment to see what seems to be effective. Just something that can remove that metal quickly. Something that I don't mind abusing. Okay. I think that's good enough for this grit. Visually, I'm going to do a 3-finger test here. Fingers on the spine, try to feel that edge all the way to the tip. Feels pretty good. I feel like it could use a little bit more time on this grit. So I have an option here of just spending my time on this grit, or I could, instead of progressing to a polishing stone, go to a slightly finer grit medium grit stone, which something around maybe 2,000. I have that option. I might try that today. As far as what grit number to use when, that's where it's a little bit tricky, because grit numbers, when you buy stones from different manufacturers, are not consistent. You might find a number 800 grit that is finer than 1,000 grit from another company. So you just have to use them and gauge that for yourself to see what seems to be working. I'm going to use the number 2000. This is also splashing those down. Spend a little bit of time on here. Hopefully that'll save me time in the end. And then I'll go to a 5,000 grit. Maybe a 7,000. We'll see how far I want to push this. Okay. If you have more progressive grits, you don't have to spend as much time on each, and in theory, you should be able to get the job done slightly faster. But I think 3 grit sizes will really be enough for most people who are looking for a complete range of stones. So you're looking for something around that 300 to 500 range for your coarse stone. And then 800 to 2000 is your medium. This is with Japanese grit numbers, not US sandpaper grits. Those are they do not correspond. But the higher number grits are finer, relatively speaking. Up on this grit, and then if I need to come back, because when I'm done I will really see any flaws that exist in my process. If I missed a spot or I didn't quite sharpen a certain section all the way to the edge, something. But I'm just going from experience here, not verifying after each grit as much. My goal here today is to get this done as quickly as I can, which that's perhaps a tall order for this kind of a project. Alright, now I'm pulling out my number 7,000 stone. This is definitely a polishing stone. 5,000 and up is a really what I would consider polishing, although some 4,000 grits are definitely going to qualify as that. And how high of a polish you want to put on that knife depends on your preference, what you're using it for. Some people really do not like a really polished edge on their knife because it doesn't seem to grab the material as much. It depends on what you're cutting. Are you cutting a bunch of hemp, some rope, or are you trying to slice through an onion? It's different. If you're cutting meat or carrots, it's going to feel very different. You might choose to polish your knife up to different grits depending upon what that knife is used for. If I did everything perfectly, I should be done after this. But I will. There we go. Yeah, I could hear that burr being scraped off when I reversed sides. I don't know if the camera picks it up or not. That sound. Flip it around, see if you can hear it. There we go. There's that burr being removed on that first stroke. So that's a good thing. I'm hearing every time I flip it, that burr is being removed. So that means my grind, at least mostly, is reaching all the way to the edge. Okay. Let's see how that feels. That 3-finger test. I'm gonna rinse it off first before I do that. Feels polished most of the way. I'm gonna do a paper test. And we'll see how she does. Sorry for the length of this video. Whoops. Is that me? Not sure about that. Looks like there are some imperfections in the tip here. I'm gonna go back and see if I can fix that. It's not bad. Probably not very noticeable. I'm gonna go back down to a medium grit. Which one shall I use? I'm gonna use a different stone here. This one is a Kyocera 800, which really behaves more like a maybe a 1500 King, something around there. King 1500 seems to be similar. It is a very hard and dense stone that does not wear very quickly. It stays flat, which is really nice. I was going to pull this one out earlier, but I just went with my standard. And I will have to go back and polish this again. Paying extra attention to that tip. For some reason this stone feels like I need to press into it harder, but I don't think it is. It just is somehow stickier. It doesn't glide the same way. It is interesting how the texture feels so different. Not just the roughness, the coarseness, but some are smooth and some are sticky, some are just bumpy. Even if it's somewhat finer. Okay. Let's go back to that polishing stone. I may have jumped a little bit too much. I have some slightly coarser polishing stones. This is number 7000. I could use a 5000 and then go to this 7000. But I don't have to. It does save time, I think. Which seems to contradict what I was saying earlier. Well, which is it? Should I use more progressive stones or less? There's a balance there. Because if you use too many steps, then that's just going to slow you down, and it's more maintenance that you have to do on your stones. think about 3 or 4 is probably a good number of progressions to have. You have a core stone, medium stone, and then some polishing options. So depending upon how fine of a polish you want to put on, you can just put a lower polish or a really high polish. And if you have some imperfections that you're having a tough time getting out, just strop it. It's good to have a strop in your toolkit. Put a little bit of some kind of a sharpening compound, a metal polish on there. And if you're not as skilled, then that'll cover wherever your skill lacks. It's a lot more forgiving. Very forgiving, much easier to use. Okay, let's try that one more time. Where did I put that towel? I don't know where I put that towel. Oh, here it is. Try this again. Pretty good. Not as sharp as I want to. Definitely sharp enough. Wonder how this would do on a paper towel test. Give that a try. It's not sharp all the way along the edge. I'm going to slice this paper towel here off camera. Let's see. Whoa, that was a clean slice. Clean slice. I'm going to take this up one more notch just because I think there are some minor imperfections here, and this is my secret weapon here. This 12,000 grit stone is, it works magic. Whenever my edge isn't exactly the way I like it to be, I use this one and it gets it there. This one makes the edge look really shiny. And you don't need to spend a lot of time on it either, that's the thing. And then absoluteness of sharpness here definitely gets it there. Will it cut through a tomato better? I'm not sure. Probably not very noticeably. But if I'm doing a test with a paper towel, I can tell the difference. Okay. Then I will use some soap, clean off that edge. Do a paper test one more time. Another paper towel test. And we'll call it good. Oh goodness, 45 minutes in. Again, I'm sorry about the length of this video. There we go. Yep, that's it. That does it. That is what I am looking for. Then I'll do this paper towel test one more time. Oof. Yeah, does it. It's good. First time through, I didn't quite cut it all the way because I missed. My technique was not good. But it's good. See if I can show that finished edge. You see that polish all the way to the tip? There we go. All right, that's it for today. Have a nice day. Thanks for watching.